Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this 20th Iron and Steel Summit and Expo. And we are now beginning the inauguration session of this summit. Before we move on to the actual session, let me give a brief introduction and brief history of this event. This event started in 2003 in Raipur, and for last before COVID, we were doing this event in Raipur every year, and that was supposed to be concentrated on the sponge iron based iron and steel industry. But then since COVID, then the event obviously moved on to the digital platform, and we thought that let us not, since it is digital platform and people from all over India and abroad are also joining us, then it is better that we don't concentrate only on sponge iron, but we concentrate on the overall iron and steel industry in the region. So since then, we have adopted a policy that we include companies and we include technologies from other subsectors of the steel industry as well in this conference. And thus, this conference we have tried to make it more broader and more encompassing about for the steel industry. So this is one part of it. The second part of it is that, as I we always say that Indian steel industry is at a really threshold of the ways. We have, on one hand, we have challenge from from green steel making and making the environment carbon dioxide free and making less carbon footprint on the environment. On the other hand, we have challenges of increasing the efficiency, putting our iron ore to use, and then creating employment, and most importantly, fulfilling the need of downstream industries in terms of steel. So all these challenges we are facing industry, as I always say that a country like India, where infrastructure is, the center of the infrastructure growth is steel only, and the economy is revolving, the growth of economy is revolving around the infrastructural growth of this country. So steel obviously assumes a very important position in this developmental process of the economy. And so, in a way, we can say that the steel industry can make or break this Indian dream of economic growth. So, such is the importance of steel industry in the economic growth of the country. So, having said that, we now move on to the inauguration session of this important industry event. Just to remind you, Mr. Rajesh Gupta was just mentioning that how many participants are there. I know the participants are less as on now, but this event we are recording and we are sending to our full database, international database of around 25,000 steel professionals across the globe. So eventually, these digital events we have found in last 2 3 years of COVID can reach to more number of people as compared to the physical events eventually, if not on that day, on that particular day. So, having said this, sir, we would like to move on to our dignitaries. We are happy to have with us Mr. Rajesh Gupta, Director of Lloyds Metal and Energy Limited. Mr. Rajesh Gupta has been a veteran of steel industry, and he is around for more than three decades, sir. Nahi? Both more than 3 decades, and has been the guiding force of steel industry, Indian steel industry. Thank you, Rajesh ji, for sparing time in spite of your busy traveling schedule and be with us for this inauguration session. Then we have Mr. Ranjan Kumar Padhy from JPC. Again, Mr. Padhy has been an old hand in Joint Plan Committee and is instrumental in developing a lot of systems and procedures in the Joint Plan Committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Padhy. And shortly we will be joining with Mr. Yogesh Mandhani. He is already there. I think Yogesh, bhai, please put on your video. Yeah. Yes. Mr. Yogesh Mandhani is a very prominent steel reruler from Maharashtra, Aurangabad, and currently he is holding a position of president of All India Induction Furnace Association. Thank you very much, Yogesh ji, for being with us for this inauguration session. And all these.
Thank you very much,
Yeah,
Chandekar ji, for inviting us
yes. Thank
in the
you all
steel world.
the for
Yeah.
being with us for this inauguration session. And let us start. And I would like to hear from Mr. Padhy about this state of Indian steel industry in a brief way. Mr. Padhy, please.
Good morning to all. Thank you, Rajesh ji. Thank you, Mandhani ji. So it is what I can say, it is a very good platform for Steelworld that every year Mr. Chandekar sir is conducting a workshop or seminar through last. Initially it is conducted to physical mode, but during the COVID and post-COVID it is conducted to digital mode. But it is nice to see that we are sharing and exploring the pro and cons of iron steel futures of India. If you are seeing the futures of iron steel in India, it is very lucrative, and specifically in the 23-24, when we are composing the data, and we just released the flash report in 5th of September, we see that there is a drastically growth in crude steel, finished steel, and the value-added products. If you'll see last year, after post-COVID, 22, 23, 24, then there is a addition of some capacity in crude steel also, specifically in the induction furnace sector. Because during the COVID, there are so many secondary sector units are temporarily closed down due to the manpower issues, due to the supply of the raw materials, due to the consumption in India. And in 22-23, there is a restriction for export the steel to other countries by the government of India, and later on the impose of duty it is waived, and now the export and import are almost similar. If you're looking into 23-24, the statistical figures, since in April August already the crude steel production is achieved 57.26 million ton. If the same trend is continued during this whole year, so almost we will achieve around 137 to 140 million ton crude steel production, and corresponding the finished steel production is also we are achieving at 54.5 million ton. Now if the trend is continue, we are reaching it to around 132 million ton, which is a addition of 10 million ton capacity as a production as compared to last year finished steel. Similarly, the value added and the downstream production also increase as compared to previous year also. When we are seeing the domestic consumption, initially this year it is per capita it is 87.9 million ton, but if you will see this year's trend, obviously it will be reached to more than 90 million ton per 90 kg per capita, and the consumption it will be reached around 127 to 28 million ton of finished steel. So since the export and import we are seeing almost steady and it is not drastically increased. So the figure shows that the whatever the steel we are producing in India, almost it is consumed in India also. Since last year, if you will see that Government of India, Ministry of Steel, they are making a study on this infrastructure, and the one application it is developed that it will be Bison G, and through that all the steel industry along with other industry they are mapping, geo mapping, so that government may plan for the infrastructure either through railway line or through from roadways or any other, so that it may be making a cluster so that all the raw material to finished steel supply chain will be so smoothly functioning. Similarly, if you just see the last 8 core industry result is also declared, in specifically in steel, there is a drastically growth. If you see the month-to-month basis in July, it is 13.5% growth, and in the whole period April-July, it is 15.3%, which is the highest growth in within the 8 core segments. And what we are discussing that since last 6 to 7 months, in the technology growth, the industry 4.0 is launched by Government of India, where the green steel technology we are promoting, and different task force are constituted by Ministry of Steel. Around 8 to 10 task force are there. They are looking for CO2 emission, green steel technology implementation, then capacity expansion, and the carbon trading also, so that the in 2047 the CO2 emission will be reduced to 50%, and after the independence of 100 years, the everything the CO2 will be zero in the India. In industry 4.0, there are so many energy consumption also implementation are going on through wind power, through electricity power, through solar system, so that the steel industry can functioning without using the normal electricity consumption, so that the cost of the production of the per ton of the material, it will be decreased, so that it will be consumed in India, not to export to other countries, or we are not dependent on other countries to import the value-added product, so that everything can be generated and everything can be consumed in India. Similarly, if we see the government's projection in 2030, we are planning for 300 million ton capacity. But right now, just we are composing the data for 23-24 and provisional capacity that we are last year we are released at 121 one sorry, last year we are it is 161 million ton capacity, crucial capacity. Now just within these 5 to 6 months, another 7 to 8 million ton capacity is added. Specifically, it is all from induction furnace segment, because there are certain units which are closed in COVID sector, COVID period, and after COVID, gradually they are opened, and there was full phase they are functioning. So this 7 to 8 million ton capacity, and we hope that at the end of this year, around 10 to 12 million ton capacity will be added, and we will achieve more than 170 to 73 million ton capacity. Similarly, in geo mapping, if successfully it will be implemented by Government of India, then the infrastructure will be also developed. Just like you will see in last year, the Government of India has planned a Purvodaya project that it will be coordination with the 6 states: Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Bihar, West Bengal, Jharkhand, and that is northeast. So they are planning to coordinate with the all the states, so that the raw material to finished steel will move with this Purvodaya project. And Odisha, they are making a hub for the since raw material is available in Odisha, so they are planning to implement. Kalinganagar is one of the hub for manufacturing of the steel, and government of Odisha is planning to see that within 5 years in Kalinganagar there may be addition of another 7 to 8 million ton crude steel, so that the capacity we will achieve in 2030 around to 300 million ton, and accordingly the production will be also achieved around 230 to 240 million ton. But let's see, there are certain things mainly depend upon the infrastructure, how the steel is consumed in India, because there is two things are there. One is domestic consumption, another is in infrastructure consumption. If government, there are certain things there government is projecting, that one is the railway projects. If successfully the railway projects are implemented, then almost around out of this 130 million ton finished steel, every year it may be consumed 50 to 60 million ton in finished steel in the railway product, and corresponding other accessories also be used, so that we just closely monitor and the investor also they are monitoring what is the planning of the government of India. If government successfully implemented all the projects, then gradually there are certain things still now in pipeline, just like MNS projecting 12 million ton steel in Odisha, then expansion of JSW, expansion of JSPL, expansion of other main producer also in blast furnace and electric arc furnace sector also. It will coming up. So there is a heavy growth and good result in the steel sector in Odisha, and we are hope for the best. So that is all for my side. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Mr. Padhy. It is always a pleasure to hear from you people, because you are the original custodians of all the database of Indian steel industry, all the figures related to Indian iron and steel industry. So thank you very much, Mr. Padhy, for sharing.
And one thing, sir, I want to add, one of my in second half we have a presentation that
Please,
overall
yes,
scenario of
yes.
iron steel. So my colleagues, Mr. Anand Rai, he will present the
Sure.
statistical figures.
That's okay. Yes, that is okay. Thank you very much.
So it will be very detailed figures and statistical figures.
Absolutely,
So you can easily find out how India is moving.
The presentation from Joint Plan Committee is always a star presentation in the conference, sir. And always, we get the original figures, and the most reliable figures are from JPC, as you all know. So thank you very much, Mr. Padhy, for sharing your insight about the iron and steel industry in the country. And now we go on to Mr. Mandhani. Mr. Mandhani is the current president of Iron and All India Induction Furnace Association. And I will request Mr. Mandhani to please share his views on the occasion of this conference. Mr. Mandhani, please. सर आपका वीडियो ऑन कीजिए.
Hello,
हाँ,
I'm
yes, yes,
audible?
audible, sir. Please carry.
Yeah. So good morning to the all delegates present over here. First of all, sorry मैं थोड़ा लेट हो गया ये conference attend करने में because I'm traveling and actually I'm in Delhi and I would like to congratulate the entire team for this event. So there are a lot of things talk in the discussion about the steel and how the steel sector would be. So basically, I represent the MSME sector, wherein we have 1,280 units spread across India. And the beauty of our sector is that it gives an employment in the rural area and they are spread out all across. Now, one thing I would like to specify that the sector is doing good and India has and our ministry has set up a targets and we are on the pathway of this target. The sector which I represent is equally important and will play a major role in the coming years to achieve the target of 300 million ton. Now the new era of this green steel and the world is looking over it. We had a lot of discussion in G20 wherein all the delegates of G20 were having a concern of carbon emission and zero carbon pathway. So my sector is equally and more promising to support this drive of zero pathway in carbon. Basically, my sector uses the raw material as a scrap, and we are very close to achieve these targets, provided that some supports are given by the governments and the technology part. So, yesterday I was very fond of attending one of the conference wherein the Korean delegates and India through CIDC, this event was organized and the same concern about the hydrogen production, the green hydrogen, and the use of this to produce the various commodities in India. So the best part is that everyone is eyeing India for its growth. It was known to us that the Korean people want to set up an ecosystem wherein they want to have a ecosystem for development of green hydrogen production and its equipment manufacturing, wherein these equipments like electrolysis and all this paneling and everything will be used for production of the green steel in India. So from this platform, I would just say that yeah, the feel good factor for all of us, not only for the big players, but also for the MSME sector players. It is a good environment right now, and we should take away and encash this. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mandhani. And it is really heartening to know that we are in the right situation, maybe at the right time and the right place. So let us encash, as Mr. Mandhani says, let us encash as much as possible out of this situation. Uh, let's move on to our next dignitary, Mr. Rajesh Gupta. Rajesh bhai, thank you very much again. I would like to thank you for sparing your time. And you are coming to our conference after a lot of years. So we are very eager to hear from you your perception about the current status of Indian steel industry. I am sure you are always having a different and very fact based and rational view about the industry. We are all are very eager to hear that view from you. So please, sir, the
See, the
floor
payment was
is yours.
deposited to your travel agent.
Chandekar, thank you very much for inviting me to this 20th Iron Steel Summit. Like I was just discussing before before you started the conference formally, We have been meeting for the last 30 years, and you were the first, one of the first initiators of starting the information drive in the steel industry when there was no information available other than JPC. See, data used to come around 3 to 6 months lag, and you try to cover that lag. Now, of course, Padhi Sahab, I really compliment you that August ki data, April to August data is already published by you, and uh, really congratulations that within less than 7 days you have published the April to August data. The encouraging factor what Mr. Mandhani mentioned about the feel good factor is that there has been 11% to 12% growth in the consumption in the last 5 months. This indicates that the economy is in a very solid state, 6-7% economical growth and 11% growth in the steel consumption indicate that we are in a very solid economic cycle in India. And bypassing the world problems of Ukraine. People talk about India being India plus one, China plus one, India being. I think if you compare to that, I think the Indian growth in steel in steel and in economy. And let me just clarify here that steel is the second largest industry in the world. When I say steel, I mean iron and steel. It's the second largest industry in the world after oil and oil-related products. So what happens to the economy happens to steel, and what happens to steel happens to the economy. So we should not talk about India being China plus one, but it should be India should be the growth that we are seeing of the 11% is without much exports. In fact, a reduction of exports is how this growth has happened, whether in the iron ore, whether in the pellets, or whether in the steel itself. This indicates that the economy itself is growth, and once the export starts, that is when you would see a much faster growth. So I think the resilience in the economy is being very strong, and I really appreciate the government efforts led by Shri Narendra Modi, our Prime Minister. The conference is for iron and steel. So since Mr. Padhy and Mr. Mandhani have already talked about steel, let me talk about iron. Without iron ore, scrap alone cannot suffice in India's steel requirements. If we talk about scrap, scrap has got a 40-year cycle. 40 years back, steel has a 40-year cycle. After 40 years, it becomes scrap. 40 years back, India's consumption was maybe 15 million, 20 million tons of steel. Out of that, if you take 70% recovery, you're talking about 15 million tons of scrap maximum over the next 10 years every year, which is also very difficult. And the growth path set by the government and by the powers is that we should achieve 300 million tons very soon. That means we need around 600 million tons of raw material, and scrap will not be sufficient. So we have to find other ways of how to make steel green using the iron ore route as well. Coming to iron ore itself, 255 million tons was the last. Can I share the screen, Mr. Chandekar?
Yeah, you can.
Since you're giving me the this that I like to share my data.
Please go ahead. Yes.
Yeah. So can you see my screen?
Absolutely, we can see you.
Okay.
We can see the screen.
So India currently produces around 255 million tons of iron ore, and the last 12 years growth is only 2%. Okay, this accounts for COVID, of course, but also the Shah Commission, and a whole lot of issues.
Okay.
The annual policy set in 2019 and the MMDR Act, etc., has been revamped. There have been changes done, and we hope that there will be some changes that will happen further, and the production growth cycle should go up by more than the 2% that is happening. Indian over 12 years, but in the last 7 years, it's only 4.5, 4 to 5%. So Indian Steel is growing consistently at 7, 6, 7, 8%. So that means every year we are falling back on our iron ore requirements. The reserves are there. I think the government has to be very, very strongly focused on how to use the reserves in a more accelerated way. One of the positions that our company is taking is that beneficiation should be more widely used by the government as a policy to use the iron ore. In the late 90s, early 2000, pelletization was not a thought process with the government. We were the only two pellet plants were Mandovi and KIOCL being run in a big way. JSW and SR started at that time, but there were no smaller players. With the smaller players now entering it, and pelletization has become a very big thing. So all the fines which were just lying idle have now been used. But now we have a problem of lower grade fines lying idle by the millions of tons.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the government has to play a very dramatic role in pushing policies for supporting the beneficiation.
I know.
There are environmental issues at stake, both in beneficiating iron ore, but also in not beneficiating iron ore. When you beneficiate iron ore, you have to dispose of the tailings or store the tailings. Let me not say dispose or store the tailings in areas which are, but which are not being, which are currently not part, which are currently forested maybe. But if you don't do that, then you have to have more iron ore mining, and there's a limitation to that. So, therefore, beneficiation, according to us, is a very, very important step that the government has to take. Technologies in China exist where grades up to 35% are being beneficiated, whether BHQ or BJQ, beneficiated hematite quartz and beneficiated jade quartz. And that's what has to be BHJ, sorry, beneficiated hematite jade. So what has to be done is to allow the miners to, or private industries or non-mining industries to beneficiate this huge stocks of below 50%. I think iron ore is now declared at less than 54% is not iron ore. And that's all lying waste. So that's where the government should be looking at. The Goa government has has cleared a dump policy of 700 million tons. 700 million tons is already mined and lying, less than 55%. And the normal thought process is let us export it to Japan or to wherever where they have been traditionally doing. If Japan can be using this ore, if China can be using 35% ore, why cannot India also work on this? So I think we have to work very hard on this, and this is what I request the authorities to focus on. Apart from that, I think the steel industry and therefore the iron industry and therefore the downstream markets are doing relatively okay with the demand, and the policies have to continue on that front. Thank you, my friend, for allowing me this little speech.
Yes, bhai. Sir, if you don't mind, can I ask you one or two questions? Hello.
Sure. Yeah.
Sir, you mentioned that whenever exports will rise, we will have better, consumption of steel. But when do you think the exports will rise? Because other markets like Europe and these developed countries, they are stagnated for so many years now. Is there any chance that it will go up?
I don't see steel itself being exported. That's a waste of our resources.
Yeah.
I think steel should be manufactured in India, and steel products should be exported. Whether engineering products, whether cars, whether fabricated structures,
Castings
So that is what I'm talking about. When China's exports, if we compare or if we benchmark with China, China's steel exports are very small component of their overall export strategy.
Okay. Yes, yes.
Today, China is exporting all kinds of machinery. We are not.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's where what I was talking, that's where the plus one strategy will happen, and not only the steel industry but downstream will also flourish in a very big way.
Yeah, yeah. And you rightly said, sir, though the usage of scrap looks very, very romantic, that we should use more scrap, but it is not going to be available, and the main thrust will have to be on iron ore based steel production. That's what.
Already, a lot of the countries have stopped or slowed down the scrap exports. UAE has stopped, and other countries are stopping. South Africa is under control. So, which was the major export hubs for India, because it is very easy to melt that scrap into steel, and a lot of Indian entrepreneurs are there in both all these areas to take these scraps and create the smaller steel plants there. So what Mr. Mandhani said, the MSME, I don't agree with MSME. It's a very big part of our industry. Around 35% is produced through the through that sector, non-integrated sector, and that's where the growth lies. And we cannot depend only on scrap on that.
Absolutely,
Our company is focusing on. We are in Maharashtra in the eastern part of Maharashtra. Our iron ore mine. We are currently doing around 10 million tons of production, and our company is trying to focus. Not only we will be adding value to the iron ore by making steel, of course, but at the same time we will be talking to various steel consumers all over Maharashtra to ensure that everybody has the availability of iron ore, and so that sector can grow consistently.
Yeah, definitely. And you also emphasized on beneficiation and pelletization of the iron ore. So that is also, need of the hour, because lot of, as you mentioned, lot of heap and heap, millions and million tons of iron ore are lying outside the mines, and they are yet to be processed. So if China can use 35% of iron ore, why can't we process, beneficiate, pelletize and use it? So that's a perfect solution, sir. And thank you very much for sharing all these insight with us. And
Thank you.
Mandhani, you want to say something on what Rajesh bhai has said?
Yeah, Rajesh bhai is one of our mentor, and he supports our sector. Yeah, he's a supporting hand to our sector, and really, I want to say the post-COVID, Rajesh bhai and the Lloyds Steel have supported us, our sector, and we are growing equally. So about the scrap.
Hello. Sir, your voice is breaking, I think.
Definitely, the scrap availability.
Sir, your voice is breaking, but anyway,
A big more thing.
I think
Yeah, the main producers also are in the ratio of 20% as on 2 points. But give me some time so that I get in the proper range. Give me just 10 minutes time. I'll put my words after 10
What
minutes.
we can do, you can join in our next session, no problem. And till that time, I think we thank our dignitaries, Mr. Rajesh Gupta, Mr. Ranjan Kumar Padhy, and Mr. Mandhani for being with us in this inauguration session. We have a short break of 10 minutes, and then we'll start with the next session, which is a panel discussion on steel industry in India, the future. Okay, thank you very much, and thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you
For being with us. Thanks, Rajesh bhai. Thanks, Padhi ji. And thanks, Mr. Mandhani, for being with us in this session. Thank you very much. Thank you.